Well, hello, my name is Steve Strant. I am your police chief for the Bremerton Police Department, and welcome to this edition of BPD Update. If you've seen BPD Update before, you know that we go through some of the areas or topics that we cover in the police department, some of the things we do. We usually have sort of a statistical overview of the things we've done at the end of the show. This month we're going to change it up a little bit. This is sort of a special edition of BPD Update because we have a special guest, in fact 3 special guests, that are going to talk to us a little bit about the history of the Bremerton Police Department and some of the things that have come before. And I'm going to use the word trailblazing in regard to the person who's next to me here. This is Detective Ruth Head. And I was thinking about this before we started the show, and I started my career in the late 80s, which seems like a long time ago to some people, doesn't seem long ago to me. But even in the late 80s, when I started as a police officer, female officers were not that common. It has become standard now. The U.S. Attorney, the highest ranking law enforcement officer in the state of Washington, is Jenny Durkin. The former King County Sheriff is Sue Rahr. The Chief of Everett is a female. The Chief of Bellevue is a female. And female officers are everywhere. It's very, very common. It hasn't always been that way. It has not always been typical to have a lot of female officers in law enforcement. And that didn't just happen. It happened because people chose to enter our profession, and they chose to change that. And it certainly has changed for the better. And one of those people who chose to make that change and who chose to blaze that trail for females in law enforcement is our special guest this month. Her name is Ruth Head. She is a retired detective for the Bremerton Police Department, and before we started taping I asked if I could call her Ruth, and her answer was, "I've been called worse." and first of all, welcome, Ruth. We're really, really glad that you're here with us this week. Also want to mention that we have 2 of your daughters with us. We have Nancy Wyden and Tracy, excuse me, I got that backwards. Nancy Wyden and Tracy Willis, who are 2 of Ruth's daughters who have accompanied her here today. And again, thank you for letting us ask your mom a lot about what she's done for our city and for our profession. I should mention as well that how this all came about was Ruth's family mentioned that they were cleaning out some of her stuff, and she said, "Well, I have some old stuff out there, why don't you just give it to Goodwill?" And as they went through it, they found a uniform that is now part of our front lobby display, our historical display here at the Bremerton Police Department. It's open to anyone who, the public obviously can come into our lobby anytime and take a look at this. But it's an actual uniform from the 1950s with a handbag that belonged to Ruth as part of her uniform, and we'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. But again, you can come in and take a look at some of these things anytime. This was just given to us by Ruth's family. We're very, very grateful to have it, and that led to talking a little bit more with Ruth's family, and to us today being able to actually interview Ruth and talk to her a little bit about her experience as a Bremerton police officer. What was it that attracted you to becoming a police officer?
I can't recall just offhand. My brother-in-law worked with the police he was a merchant patrol.
Okay.
And so I knew a little bit about what the police did.
Right. Was downtown Bremerton a lot different than it is today?
Oh, yes.
I've been told there's a lot more bars. Do you remember there being a lot of bars in downtown?
There were lots of bars, lots of sailors,
Uh-huh.
lots of young ladies walking the streets looking for sailors.
Okay. This was a true Navy town in sort
Oh,
of
yes.
yeah.
I would talk to the people, talk to the girls,
Mm-hmm.
try to send them back home or whatever I could.
Yeah.
But it usually didn't work very well. But I wouldn't look back on it as being rowdy.
Well, I heard a story that on the rare occasions when you went out in a patrol car, the chief got a call sometimes.
Oh, yeah.
What did they say?
Oh, they'd say, there's a woman driving a police car. Oh, that was just out of this world.
And people called because that was so unusual.
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
Uh-huh.
Again, it's just amazing how different things were back then. After you became a police officer, one of the things I learned from some of the things that you've written is that you learned a little bit more about the law and how to do your job from one of the captains. That he just helped you along a little bit?
Yes, yeah, there was one captain that, he would, when it was quiet around town,
He would just help you out?
he'd sit me down and get out the law books.
Okay. Can you describe a little bit for me what it was like to be a female officer in a department and in a time where that was so unusual? I mean, how did people treat you?
Well, they treated me all right. The best way I could describe it was, I was a nuisance.
Okay. Sometimes they treated you like a nuisance?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Okay.
But they were quick to come when they needed my help,
Okay.
so that worked out.
Okay. And you could help in some ways that male officers couldn't?
Yes, when they arrested a female, I could, she would talk to me.
Oh, okay.
What the situation was.
Right.
And I'd try to help them or whatever it took. If they needed make phone calls or contact people, and I'd try to help them.
Can you tell us a little bit about what did you, when you were, it sounds like mostly you were on foot when you were working, you were walking.
Yes.
What did you carry with you? Do you remember the equipment that you would carry around?
Well, I had a little gun
Okay. Where was that kept?
in my pocket, I think.
When you were walking around as a police officer, do you remember what kinds of things you did as your day went by at all?
Mostly just talking to people
Just talking to
and
people.
seeing what was going on, and
Right.
if somebody needed some kind of help, we'd see what we could do.
Right. We were talking a little bit before we started taping about that you would get to know the kids and get to know the people that were out there, and that sort of changed a little bit. Did you think that was a good way to do policing, was to get to know people and to know who everyone's family was? Did you think that was a good way to do police work?
Well, yes, they would come to us, for problems or
Right.
some incident and talk.
This might be a hard question. What did you like the best about being a police officer? What did you like about it?
Oh, it's hard to be specific. The camaraderie
Mhm.
between the officers
Mhm.
was really good. And helping each other out.
Mhm.
If they got involved in a situation, they could always call us.
Right, being there for your partners.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. What else, anything else that you really liked about law enforcement?
Well, it was interesting.
Mhm.
There was always something
Mhm.
happening.
Mhm.
You didn't get bored.
Yep, the variety.
Right.
The variety. I agree. I would say the same thing. That'd be the same answer I would give. Maybe a harder question. What did you not like so much about law enforcement?
I didn't like the fights,
Uh-huh.
people getting hurt,
Right.
the situations that you couldn't help.
Yeah. Yeah.
You were just, you might try, but they were beyond what you could do.
If I could, as we finish up, Ruth, I wanted to mention something, and this was something that you wrote. You retired in 1980, and you wrote that part of your job was to be all things to all people. You could be the desk sergeant, the juvenile officer, the statement taker, the investigator, the jailer, the clerk, the typist, the radio operator, the beat man, the advisor, and sometimes the wicked witch, you wrote. And you said that sometimes you were even grandma. And you were all things to all people in that job, but that after 24 years of doing that job, the siren's call ended for you. But it sounds like you not only contributed a lot, in this profession, into this department, but you contributed so much to this city and this community. And as the chief of this department, very proud department with a proud history, you're a huge part of our history. And I want to thank you for what you did.
Yes. I probably had an understanding of, I had a very poor upbringing myself,
Mm-hmm.
and I understood what happens to kids when they don't have somebody.
Mm-hmm.
So I think I understood some of the fellows who had nice homes, their nice situation.
Mm-hmm.
They couldn't understand why the kids didn't appreciate that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, a lot of them didn't know that stuff existed.
Right. And again, I'll go back to how it's many of the same things we're dealing with today. When I talk to officers sometimes, when I talk to community members, what they're talking about is the perspective that they're bringing. If somebody had maybe a difficult upbringing like you did, they have a different perspective, and the way that they deal with people is different because they understand where they're coming from, and that is, again, exactly what we're still doing in this business. And again, you were doing it 40 and 50 years ago, way ahead of us, and you understand exactly the kinds of things that we're dealing with in law enforcement. And again, because of people like you, that's made this the department that it is today. And again, thank you so much for all you've done. So thank you. And thank you for being with us today. And we're looking forward to having that historical display that you were good enough to get for us in our front lobby for the public to see from now on, to show people the trailblazing that you did for females in law enforcement and for all of us here at the Bremerton Police Department. Thank you again for being with us.
Yes, I'm sure that there were others that helped.
Well, there were, but you were a very important one. So again, thank you for being with us. Thank you. Again, a very special guest that we have with us this week on BPD Update. I have worked for other departments in my career that have a long history, and the history of this department is one that we're very proud of. Bremerton is an older city that has had a very strong police department for a long time, and it's a strong and a very good department because of great people like Detective Ruth Head. And we are very, very grateful for their contributions, and we hope to continue that legacy as we move forward. So again, thank you for joining us. Thank you for getting some great information that we got from Detective Head, and we'll see you next time on BPD Update. Well, as we usually do on BPD Update, we sort of finish up the show with an update on a lot of things going on around the Bremerton Police Department to sort of let you know what we're up to. First of all, here is a couple of photos and some video of the swearing in of our newest officer that we just hired. He's now going through his field training program. His name is Jordan Ejde, E-J-D-E. And as I mentioned, he was sworn in very recently at our city council meeting. We're very, very pleased to have Jordan join our department. He comes to us from the Skamania County Sheriff's Office, which is where he started, but spent actually a relatively short period of time there. He joined Bremerton because he wanted to come home. He's from this area originally and wanted to basically be employed as a police officer with us in his home community, and we certainly appreciate that, and we value that because being part of this community is important to us. Also should mention, we had a sort of a community basketball game where we had young people from the community, again, sometimes who unfortunately only have negative or very brief interactions with the police, and we wanted to build some relationships. So working with Mount Zion Church and other groups, we had a basketball game in the month of October. It was good to have Jordan with us, by the way. He is fast like the wind, but we're looking forward to some more community building and relationship building as well. And again, glad to have Officer Ejde with us. Also, at a recent council meeting, we presented 25-year awards to 3 different people in our department. I mentioned at the council meeting that you go back to 1987, 86, 87, When this occurred, when they were all hired in the month of April and May in that year, Ronald Reagan was the president. Our newest officer, Jordan Nader, wasn't born yet, but we hired 3 people that have turned out to be outstanding additions to our police department. And we presented 25-year awards to Sergeant Kevin Crane, who is the head of our detective unit, to Sergeant Randy Olson, who is one of our veteran patrol sergeants, and then Captain Tom Wolf as well. And of course, he oversees our patrol division. Let's take a look, if we could, and we always do this every month, at some of our statistics. Don't spend a lot of time on numbers, but want to give you a little bit of an idea of where those are. So this is for the month of September 2013. You can see there that our number of reports, so this is just anything on which we took a report, that's not crimes, it's just reports, down 5% compared to the same month in 2012. Our number of arrests, down significantly, 21% compared to September of 2012. This is a number that goes up and down month to month, but again, sort of an interesting perspective that our number of arrests is down a little bit. Not going to draw any conclusions from that yet, but we'll take a look at that as the months go by. Domestic violence arrests up a little bit, 18% to 22 total. Our burglary arrests, a small increase, but again, the numbers are relatively small. And then DUIs, actually down 43%, but again, that has a lot to do with whether we conduct an emphasis patrol for drunk driving. I want to give you a quick update on our strategic plan. If you watch our show regularly, or if you watch council meetings when we talk a little bit about this, we had an outside audit from the Washington Association of Sheriffs and Police Chiefs conducted for the Bremerton Police Department earlier this year. We had them come in to give us sort of a baseline on where we were, what we do well, what we could improve on. One of their key recommendations, in fact, I would call it the key recommendation, was to develop a strong strategic plan. And that is exactly what we're doing. We are now well into that development process. And in fact, we are really, as we speak, conducting those strategic plan sessions with a facilitator who sort of was loaned to us, and we're very grateful for their help. It was loaned to us from Olympic College, of course, here in Bremerton. The facilitator is Dr. Michelle Chandrasekhar. She is the Director of Institutional Planning, Assessment, and Research, and she's been great to work with, and again, a great partnership with Olympic College. Building the strategic plan means that we will have a very specific mission, vision, and set of goals to follow. And it answers the question, what do we want to look like in 5 years? Sometimes departments, and police departments too, can be just reactive. We're reacting to outside events. Strategic plan gives us a guidepost, a path to follow. And I think that as the chief, that's one of the most important things I can provide for this department. So again, having the doctor help us has been very helpful. We have, of course, internal members of our department who bring their perspective and their experience to help us build this strategic plan. It isn't just going to be something that I come up with. We need people with a lot of perspective, and that's what we're doing. And also want to mention that our strategic plan group includes Council Member Leslie Dougs, who is the chair of the Public Safety and Parks Committee, and of course, Bremerton resident, and she's representing the council. And we are also very, very grateful to have the assistance as a member of our team of a retired captain from the Washington State Patrol, Bob Johnson, who is also a Bremerton resident, and very proud to be a resident of Bremerton. So we've got some great perspectives, and I'll keep you up to date on this program on what they produce and what our strategic plan will be. And again, it's already started. Also want to give you an update on our school resource officer. We've been talking about this conceptually, and I'm very pleased to be able to say that we have now worked together with and in partnership with the Bremerton School District to be able to staff a school resource officer starting January 1 of 2014. We had a school resource officer for many years here in Bremerton. It was a great resource, something the school district really valued and the kids really valued, but unfortunately it was part of budget cuts several years ago. When I first got here in February of 2013, one of my first conversations was with the superintendent, Flip Herndon, and he and I both agreed that it would be great to move toward the goal of getting a school resource officer. As Dr. Aaron Lavelle has taken over at Bremerton School District, he has been on the same page. And again, we're very, very pleased that we are now able to work with them. The school district will be picking up and paying for a significant portion of the salary and benefits of the school resource officer. So again, it's not just a partnership in name. We both have skin in the game, so to speak. so that we're working together so that we actually are sharing the cost of that school resource officer. That person has already been assigned. It will be Detective John Bogan, who has previously served as a school resource officer. He's experienced. He's very well thought of and considered both within the police department and with the district. And again, we'll have that staffed on in the first part of January. John will be based at Bremerton High School, but will also be visiting and checking in with all the other schools in the district, including the elementary schools, so that he will be a resource for the entire district. And again, just a great piece of news for us and I think for the community. We talk a lot about frequent flyers on this show, and it's a focus for us. Somebody asks me, the elevator speech, when somebody says, what's your one-sentence answer to what you're focusing on at the Bremerton Police Department? I would have to say frequent flyers. The relatively small number of people that are driving a lot of calls and problems within neighborhoods. And they're not necessarily serious felony crimes, but it's things like trespassing and breaking into cars and car prowling and just creating problems in neighborhoods and creating problems for quality of life. We want to focus on those individuals and send the message that this is not a good place for them to be. Another phrase we use is focused enforcement. So I have one quick anecdote to share with you from the past month. It was sort of a result of our bike patrol. We're seeing some increasing bike patrols, particularly in the 6th and Park area, the downtown area, as well as the Callow area of Bremerton. And officers contacted an individual that had been involved in numerous, and when I say numerous, I'm not exaggerating, hundreds of calls over the years involving us and this suspect, trespassing, theft, car prowling. This person actually went to a jury trial. He requested a jury trial in our municipal court, which of course is his right, on a specific case, went to a full jury trial. The jury took 5 minutes to return a verdict on this individual, and this person was sentenced by the judge to 364 days in jail. He is a true example of a frequent flyer, somebody we want to focus on and getting him off of our streets. Here's the end of that story. The Bremerton Police Department staff, knowing that he had been sentenced to 364 days in jail, worked with one of our jail contracts, which is in Forks, the city of Forks. They will take our inmates, particularly our long-term inmates, because it is at a lower cost than it would be at the Kitsap County Jail. So this person was sentenced to 364 days in jail and had been transported to Forks literally within hours of the sentence. And he will be in Forks for the next year. And by the way, the cost for putting that person in the jail in Forks will save the city about $6,000 over the next year. Again, because we are always looking at cost and making sure that we're respecting the taxpayer while still sending a very strong message to the community and to those who we don't really want in our city continuing to commit crimes, the frequent flyers, and we'll continue to return to that theme. On a much happier note and a little more positive note, I wanted to mention that in the month of September, we had Tip-A-Cop. You might have heard of this before. This is for Special Olympics, and that's a cause that law enforcement feels very strongly about, and so do a lot of other people. Special Olympians building a strong program in Kitsap County, and I want to mention as well that this is a great partnership with the Bremerton Police Department. We are really just a small part of something that's organized by the Kitsap County Sheriff's Office, working with NCIS, Naval Criminal Intelligence, other departments around the area, particularly the Bainbridge Island Police Department. And this particular event, you see a photo here, was at the Red Robin in Silverdale. I was pleased to be there for a while. Lieutenant Jeannie Elton of the Kitsap County Jail helped to coordinate that. You see in this photo as well, Kitsap County Sheriff Steve Boyer was there. Always great support from Sheriff Boyer, and again, a great partnership. And I'm told that that particular event, just at that Red Robin in Silverdale that day, raised a little over $4,000 for Special Olympics. Also have another photo that was taken at the same Red Robin with a number of people, and you see in this photo, I thought that maybe this was some sort of a costume party or somebody was going to a special event. I'm told that in fact these are just Poulsbo residents, and this is how they dress every day. I was a little surprised as well, but again, people from Poulsbo coming down from an event up there and showing support for the Special Olympians, and just a great cause. Finally, as I finish up the update this month, I mentioned before our October 26th basketball game with members of the community. A great turnout, and again, special thanks to Reverend Johnson from the Mount Zion Church, who helped to coordinate this along with a lot of other members of the community. Our officers really enjoyed the opportunity to spend time with young people as well as adults and to play some basketball, to have a good time, and to interact in a much more positive way than sometimes we're used to. And what I really liked was at this event, Pastor Johnson would stand up. He brought up a couple of our officers and said, this is Officer Chris Fadley, or this is Sergeant Randy Olson, and he would say, "What's his name?" And everyone would shout out Chris or Randy, because that's exactly what we're talking about, building strong relationships. Our team acquitted itself reasonably well. They played hard. We were a little bit down on the scoreboard by the time it was done, but again, it was a great time. And fortunately, I did not play, or I would be probably in the hospital. I've been mentioning this past couple of months. School zones. Be really aware of school zones, please, as you're out and about. We are showing zero tolerance in school zones. If it says 20 miles an hour or 25 miles an hour, that's what it means. If the light's flashing and there's kids in the area, you need to be extra cognizant of what's going on in school zones. We do not want to have any injuries or tragedies in school zones. And then finally, a very, very brief update. You know that the Kitsap County Commissioners recently passed a small increase in the sales tax to provide funding for mental health and drug dependency. A great idea. I think it's really proactive of the commissioners to get ahead of this. This is a huge issue in law enforcement. We are dealing more and more with individuals with untreated mental health issues, and you hear about the very violent outcomes sometimes with people involved in mental health issues nationwide. Aurora, Cafe Racer, Newtown, Connecticut. I mean, unfortunately there's too many examples to come up with at one time, and it's very frequent, unfortunately. Navy Yard in D.C. was another example. So it's there. It's a big issue. We're looking at training for officers. We're looking at better information for officers. We're certainly not law enforcement, but the county is looking at better resources for mental health treatment for individuals, how to reach people that don't have insurance or don't have resources within their family. Very complex issue, but a really important issue, and one that I encourage you to stay up on. And I will continue to give you updates in terms of the law enforcement perspective of some of the good things that we're doing in Kitsap County in regard to mental health. Finally, as I wrap it up this month, I do want to show you this picture of our staff. I'm really proud of this one. You might know that we do not allow patrol officers or anyone in uniform to wear a beard or a goatee by policy. But we waived that for the month of November. We're going to have sort of Movember to raise money for cancer. And what we did was we basically said to the officers, if you want to grow a goatee for the month of November and donate $20 to Kitsap Cancer Services, which is a local group that provides real outreach and real services to individuals undergoing treatment for cancer, for the $20 you can have a goatee for the month of November. And we thought we'd get, a few officers interested, and we thought we'd raise a little bit of money. It was almost $900 by the time we were done. We had amazing participation. We even had officers who didn't grow a goatee, chose not to, but still donated. And what I really liked was our female staff said, well, what can we do? And I didn't have a good answer. So they went out and got fake goatees and beards and donated as well. Just a heartwarming way for our staff and our department members to contribute to the community, to reach out and to support those served by Kitsap Cancer Services, and something fun to do as well. So if you see an officer during the month of November with some whiskers on the chin and you're thinking, what's up with that? That's why we're doing it. It's a visible show that we support those served by Kitsap Cancer Services. And again, kudos to our officers. In this photo, you see Officer Mike Nelson presenting that check to Jackie Smaha, who is the executive director of Kitsap Cancer Services, and a great cause. And if you're watching this and you're thinking, I like that, I encourage you to make a contribution as well. Kitsap Cancer Services, it's on the web, it's easy to find. That's our report. This show is all about one thing, and that's giving you information about your Bremerton Police Department. We're very, very proud to serve you. Until next month, we'll see you next time on BPD Update.